Welcome to our course Fundamentals of Game Design and Gameplay. I think this lecture is about gameplay in terms of game design. I think we are discussing hierarchy of challenges and how to inform the challenges to the game player. I think we are talking about explicit challenges. The players are aware about implicit challenges. Thus, the players are not aware about. And I think we talked about the highest level challenge, bottommost level challenge, and intermediate challenge. You usually inform the player about the highest level challenge and lowest level challenge, but you keep the intermediate challenge to be explored by the player. That's how the player can provide the fun to the game can provide fun to the player. And to design intermediate challenges, I think it's a good way to provide multiple ways of victory. Now, simultaneous atomic challenges. I think as a game designer, you should think about the implicit challenges in your game, explicit challenges of your game, and you should also create the hierarchy of them using the hierarchy diagram as we showed an example on our earlier video. Now, what about simultaneous atomic challenges? Then what does it mean? It means that you can try to pose some atomic challenges, but several of them at one time. So that is simultaneous atomic challenge. It can pose more stress, the game can become more challenging. Now let's see, in a game players face challenges, but if the challenges are in a hierarchy and in a sequence, not at the same time, the player will not think about the challenges that are coming next, not right now or not at the same moment. He will be thinking for two challenges, but maybe one after another. Again, if you place multiple challenges on the screen at the same time, but the player does not have any time pressure to attack on those, then also the player will not think about them, how to defeat them at the same time or very close in time. He will not fail it. But if you add some sort of time pressure that there are multiple enemies, the player has to defeat all of them, and there is some time pressure. So that is what we can call about simultaneous atomic challenges. I think this simultaneous atomic challenge with time pressure, it makes the game more stressful. The more different levels of challenge you add, you will have to think at once. What does it mean? Let's say if all the enemies are the same, still there are multiple challenges, still there are time pressure. But if you add one more step, and if each of the enemy can do different stuff and can attack you from differently, then the situation becomes more complex and mentally challenging. Some examples for, I think, simultaneous atomic challenge. I think in action games sometimes they bombard the player with many enemies at the same time, many of the zombies at one time, or many of the enemy fighters, and sometimes many of the enemy fighters with different actions and different capabilities to make you mad, something like that. Another example can be SimCity. Here, making the city economically strong, there's a target, but it's not just you just collect resources, make the city more resourceful. That's not the only thing. There can be some irrelevant, unrelated, simultaneous things that you have to consider to make the city stronger and to win the game, like creating a better infrastructure, transportation infrastructure, security against crime, everything that you have to consider all together to make the game or to reach to the winning condition. It's just sort of simultaneous activities. So as a game designer, you should think that do you want to use simultaneous atomic challenges or not? If you want to make your game more challenging, then you can vary these simultaneous atomic challenges, and you can make your game harder or easier. It depends on you. Now we'll study some different concepts related to gameplay and game challenge. Using these concepts, you can make your game harder or easier, or maybe easier at entry level or harder at intermediate or highest level, or something like that. So it's a skill, stress, and absolute difficulty. What is intrinsic skill? It's just the pure skill that is required to play the game. There is no time pressure or nothing. It is just, you can think, you can win the game, you can spend as much time you can use, but you need some sort of skill to win the game. So maybe if you are an archer, the player as an archer, if you aim at a target and shoot something and destroy it, you need certain types of skill. Just for an example of intrinsic skill, I think the further the target will be, it will be more difficult, and you will need more intrinsic skill to it. I think the puzzles that are presented in newspapers or in many magazines, you are given unlimited amount of time, but still you need some sort of skills to solve that puzzles. Yeah, this is about intrinsic skill. Intrinsic skill does not put much stress. I think that some games can be based on solely intrinsic skill. Some games will, in addition to the intrinsic skill, will add some stress factor or some other factor. What is stress? I think if you include the time pressure in addition to the challenge, then it becomes a stress. The more limited the time is, the more challenging it will be. I think simply by adding this time pressure, you can create the game more and more stressful and more harder. For example, the game Tetris, simply because of the time pressure, it becomes more challenging and harder. Some games like golf, it may be more focused or more biased on the intrinsic skill, but not much on the time pressure. It does not use time pressure. And you also have to think that if you provide more and more stress, it can create some physical stress on the player's body as well, like they have to use right coordination of eyes and hands, and it can stiffen their muscles, it can raise their heartbeats. So some people, they like the sensation, but in general you also should keep the players to rest, maybe to moderate those stress. And for a heavily stressful game, you really need quick reflex and quick mind to win those games. What about absolute difficulty? I think if you create games those require both intrinsic skill and that also offer stress, you are making your game more and more complex. The more skill they need and the more time pressure is there, it becomes more difficult. So the skills in the toughest level or complex level and the time pressure in the ultimate level makes the game absolutely difficult. So maybe by varying this stress level or intrinsic skill level, you can create a harder or easier game. Maybe sometimes you can if you define multiple levels, different levels in your game, you can vary these parameters to achieve those. And also when you design game, maybe you also have to think about your target audience. Usually children and teenagers, they have quick mind and quick motor skills, they do well under stress. But if you design for the, I think children and older adults, I think you have to create less stress for children and older adults, but teenagers and young adults, you can provide more stress on them. I may have told a little bit wrong.